there are very simple rules in life. Don't sit and don't play cards with crooks and don't negotiate with crooks. You're not going to outsmart them.
Let's speak now to Oleksandr Merezhko, who's the Ukrainian MP and chairs his party's Foreign Affairs Committee. Good evening to you, Oleksandr.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Well, good to have you with us. Let me ask you, first of all, we heard President Trump there talking about the prospect of a second meeting involving President Zelensky and warning President Putin of severe consequences if he doesn't agree to a ceasefire. Are you encouraged by what you've heard today?
It's a kind of situation, a triumph of hope over experience. You know, the thing is that we heard similar statements by President Trump before, and not once. So, and the thing is that we should trust more actions by politicians, not their rhetoric, not their words. So that's why I want to believe, of course, some part of me really wants to believe in this, but my experience indicates something different. That's why I would start believing only when I see Mr. Trump doing something, implementing serious consequences, serious sanctions against Russia and against those countries which provide lifeline to Russian war machine.
But it does sound as though President Trump has already shifted. I mean, first of all, he has listened to the views of EU leaders, which at one stage didn't appear to be even likely to take place. And of course, originally his meeting was going to be just him and President Putin, and he's now talking about a second meeting for President Zelensky to come along and talk directly to Russia's President Putin.
Yeah, of course, it's a great news that President Trump has had this virtual meeting conversation with the European leaders, with the president of Ukraine. It's great news. And I hope that this impression left on President Trump by this meeting will stay longer. And I hope that conversation with Putin will not change it. I do hope, but let's wait and see.
We were hearing there from President Zelensky talking about the fact that Russian forces are continuing their military offensive. I mean, is that really still going on? Are there still many parts of Ukraine who, even in the days leading up to this summit, are coming under Russian bombardment?
Of course, in this regard, Kremlin dictator is very consistent. He hasn't given up his goal to subjugate, to destroy Ukraine, and he continues to kill Ukrainian civilian population. He continues trying to grab more land. He has bogged down, his troops have bogged down in Ukraine, but he's desperately continuing to do that. And he's not going to stop. He's not going to back down. We have to be realistic, unfortunately. We shouldn't believe in miracles that there will be some kind of magic trip in Alaska which will stop Putin's aggression against Ukraine. I do hope that it will happen, but, you know, I'm trying just to be more realistic about the events.
President Putin, of course, has illegally claimed control of 4 provinces of Ukraine plus Crimea. His forces occupy parts of those different regions of your country. Do you think that realistically, if there is going to be a permanent deal, that Ukraine will have to be ready, if we go into these talks, to give up some of the territory that's occupied by Russia?
Well, it's absolutely out of the question, because we are not going to make any territorial concessions for lots of reasons, including our constitution. That principle of territorial integrity is sacrosanct principle on which our constitution is based. It cannot be changed, even by referendum, by the way. From international legal point of view, it's impossible. From moral point of view, because honestly, I cannot imagine, for example, withdrawing our troops and leaving our villages, our towns to Russian occupation, to sacrifice our people to murders, to tortures committed by Russian troops, the way they did in Bucha and Irpin. I can't imagine this happening. It would be a moral move. So I'm sure that we'll have to fight for each our citizen, for each meter of our territory, no matter what.
So what about when President Trump talks about land swaps? Is that just completely unrealistic?
I don't really understand what he implies or means by these territorial swaps, because what kind of territory are we talking about? We're talking about Ukrainian territory. We're not talking about swap between territory of Russia in exchange of territory of Ukraine and vice versa. No, this kind of territorial swaps is a euphemism for the appeasement of the aggressor. When to appease the aggressor, you don't punish him, you reward him with giving the territory of another country. I don't think it's in line with international law, the UN Charter, and I think it's deeply immoral.
President Zelensky and all those European leaders, including Keir Starmer today, have praised the US President Donald Trump for his efforts to try to find a way of bringing the war to an end. I mean, do you think that President Trump has he got a serious chance of actually finding a way to end the war, or do you think that President Putin is just stringing him along?
Well, as for his dealings with President Putin, there are very simple rules in life. Don't sit and don't play cards with crooks, and don't negotiate with crooks. You're not going to outsmart them. You're going to lose. That's why there is no need to have any negotiations with the Kremlin dictator. Just apply maximum pressure. If you want to reach a result, to stop the fighting, apply maximum pressure by providing military assistance to Ukraine, by implementing real, serious, severe sanctions with regard to the aggressor. So only these things can change the situation for better.
So when President Zelensky today said that President Trump supports Ukraine, do you think that he simply means that President Trump supports Ukraine's position on this? Or do you think that he was indicating that perhaps President Trump could start to provide some kind of military support?
I do hope that President Trump truly wholeheartedly supports Ukraine, even though sometimes I have my doubts, but these are my subjective doubts. So, but in any case, we have to work with the President Trump. We don't have other American president. We have to deal with him the way he are. And we have to do everything what we can. At stake is our survival, our life. And we have to deal with him to try to persuade him. Luckily, we have our partners, our allies, like Prime Minister Starmer, like German Chancellor, and French president. Luckily, we have friends together. We can try to change the things and to persuade, let me put it this way, in diplomatic way, to persuade President Trump to truly, genuinely support Ukraine.
What do you think, realistically, are the chances of this summit on Friday then leading to, well, EU leaders have made it clear, and so has President Zelensky, that there has to be a ceasefire before we can move on to any further stages of negotiations. What do you think are the chances of President Trump getting an agreement on a ceasefire and of that actually leading to any meaningful negotiations to find a way to end the war?
I want to be wrong on that. Truly wrong on that, but I don't have high expectations for a very simple reason, because the only obstacle to ceasefire, let alone peace, the only obstacle is Putin himself, and he's not interested in peace. He's trying to deceive, to outsmart President Trump. He doesn't want sanctions to be imposed on Russia, on Russian allies like China, for example. And he's pretending that he's in favor of negotiations. And at the same time, he will be trying to persuade Mr. Trump to put the blame on Ukraine, not on Russia. So that's why I don't believe that there will be any tangible results, but I want to be wrong.
Oleksandr Merezhko, Ukrainian MP, Chair of the country's Foreign Affairs Committee. Really good to speak to you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.